Right, Part 2, Chapter 6. All that day, Turi hid in the cave. The Grey Knights were searching elsewhere for him. He had to be sure that there was much distance between him and the knights as possible. Only once did he venture outside to drink some water from the stream. The wait was long and dull. He tried to sleep, but that was not easy on the hard, stony ground. For a while, he entertained himself by watching two squirrels playing in a nearby tree. He missed them when they scampered off somewhere else. Towards the evening, he set off on his way again. He crept parallel to the path as well as he could, always remaining alert and watchful. The night seemed endless, and he made slow progress, but he did not encounter any enemies. In the early morning, Turi stopped to rest behind some bushes. He worked out that he had been traveling for 6 days. When would he finally be out of the forest? He wondered if he should keep moving or wait for nightfall. He decided to push on. He could see more in the daytime and move faster. There was always danger whether it was night or day. Suddenly, Turi froze. Footsteps. He peered through the leaves at the nearby path. Some people were approaching. He soon saw that they were not the robbers, knights, or Red Riders, but two friendly-looking monks in brown habits. "I'm sure I can trust these men," thought Turi. "I wonder if they'll let me travel with them. Their company might offer me some protection." He stood up, stepping out onto the path, and said, "Good morning." The monks stopped. "God be with you," one of them replied. They didn't seem surprised to see him, or if they were, they didn't show it. Even though, after all his adventures, Turi looked disheveled enough to cause some alarm. Turi looked more closely at the two monks. They both seemed trustworthy. One was old, tall, and lean, with a brown face and gray hair. The other was short and fairly young, with freckles and penetrating gray eyes. "You are out early, reverend brother," he said. Then he fell silent, not knowing quite how to continue. "As are you, my son," said the elder of the two monks. "Are you heading westwards?" asked Turi. "Yes," said the other monk, pointing down the path. "We are on our way home to our monastery." "Might I walk with you?" asked Turi. "Of course, my son," said the elder monk. "We do not walk quickly, but we walk steadily, and you may accompany us for as long as you wish." "Thank you," said Turi. "Then we should introduce ourselves," the elder monk said. "This is Brother Martin, and I am Brother Laurentius, and we live at the Brown Monastery, beside the Green River." Turi nodded his greeting. Did he dare say his name? Not that he feared these monks, but they might mention his name to other people. He hesitated. "Your name does not matter, my son," said Brother Laurentius. "Come, let us travel on." "Oh, you are welcome to know my name," said Turi. "It's just that I can't. It's hard to explain, but—" The old monk smiled. "Ah, be still, my son," he said. "Tell us or do not. It is all the same to us." The three of them walked on for a while without speaking. It was Turi who broke the silence. "Is your monastery far from here?" he asked. "We hope to reach it before this evening," replied Brother Martin. "Where is it?" asked Turi. "At the end of this path," said the monk, "by the edge of the forest." "And it's beside the Green River, you say? Is that close to the Blue River?" "The Blue River lies more to the north," said Brother Laurentius, "by the great road to the west." "So I strayed off course," thought Turi. "Is that far from the monastery?" he asked. "Not too distant," said Brother Laurentius. "A day's journey, I believe. Is that not so, Brother Martin?" "It can't be much more than that," replied the other monk, looking thoughtfully at Turi. The path was wide and pleasant to walk along. Anyone would think they were out for a stroll, thought Turi. The forest seemed so peaceful. It was like a completely different place now. Was that because of the monks? However, Turi still remained alert, and he kept glancing back over his shoulder. He noticed that Brother Martin was looking at him again. Where are you traveling from, Brother Martin? Turi asked. A village back there, in the south, on the other side of the hills, the monk answered, pointing over his shoulder with a thumb. There was sickness in the village, and they needed our help. Are you not scared to travel through the forest? Asked Turi. There are robbers hereabouts. We know, said Brother Laurentus sadly, and their presence pains us. But we do not fear them. What could they steal from us? But there is something that you fear, is there not? Said Brother Martin. I have seen you look around a few times as though you are afraid something might pounce on you. What are you so concerned about? Turi felt himself blushing and did not answer immediately. Those robbers, they attacked me last night, he said finally. Oh dear, replied Brother Martin. Did they hurt you? They robbed me, said Turi. Yes, I can see that, my son, said Brother Laurentus kindly. Turi let him believe that his tattered appearance was the result of his encounter with the robbers. Something really must be done about those men, said Brother Martin with a frown. I believe you have nothing to fear. The robbers never dare to come so close to the edge of the forest. And besides, you probably have little left for them to steal now. Oh, if you only knew, thought Turi, but he said nothing. But it is not only the robbers that you are scared of, said Brother Martin. There is something else, is there not? Why would you think that? Asked Turi. You do not seem like the lad who would frighten easily, said Brother Martin, and you have little reason to fear robbers. Now, particularly not in broad daylight, so there must be something else. Is your conscience clear? Asked Brother Laurentus. Yes, said Turi, I believe it is. In fact, I am certain. Then you have nothing to fear, said the old monk. At least forget about your troubles for a moment, said the younger monk. He smiled and added, The forest's beautiful and the weather's fine. It's a lovely day. As they walked on, Turi's anxiety finally lifted, but he remained as alert as ever. After about an hour, Brother Martin asked if he was hungry. Turi was starving, but he said politely, Yes, Brother Martin. It should have occurred to us sooner, said Brother Laurentus. This young man has lost all of his possessions, and that must include his food. They sat down by the roadside, and the monks shared their food with Turi. Then they continued their journey. The monks sometimes conversed as they walked along, talking about their work in nearby villages or about plants they saw growing alongside the path. They included Turi in their conversation, but they did not pry. In the afternoon, they paused to rest and to eat again. We'll be home in good time, said Brother Laurentus, with a smile. When they continued their journey. Where are you heading, Brother Martin? Asked Turi. The Blue River, replied. Oh, where are you heading? Brother Martin asked Turi. The Blue River, replied Turi. The Blue River? There's a hermit who lives at its source, said Brother Laurentus pensively. His name is Menores, isn't it, Brother Martin? Yes, that's it, Menores, he replied. He's very wise and very old. Pilgrims used to travel to his cabin in the mountains. Do you know him? Asked Turi keenly. The monks shook their heads. But Father Hieronymus does, said Brother Laurentus, our abbot. Ah, said Turi. You may spend the night at our monastery if you like, said Brother Martin. Oh, yes, please, if I may, said Turi gratefully. Wary travelers are always welcome, said Brother Laurentus. My name is Turi, he said on an impulse. Brother Martin smiled, and Brother Laurentus gave him a friendly nod. Then Turi asked the monks if they had encountered any other people in the forest. No, they told him, they had seen no one, but they had heard the sound of a horn in the distance. By then, the sun had completed much of its daily journey. It hung above the end of the road to the west, and the three travelers felt as if they were walking along a corridor of twilight. Ahead of them, they saw a slice of golden sky framed by dark trees. We were almost there, said Brother Martin. They soon reached the edge of the forest. Before them lay a rolling landscape, with cultivated fields and sprinkling of white cottages and green copses. The blue mountains in the dim distance. To the south, the forest continued and in front of the trees stood a small church and a larger building, both built from wood and brownstone. A winding path led the way there. "That is our monastery," said Brother Laurentus, pointing down the path, "and there's the road to the north. It meets the great road that leads to the west, up at the Blue River. You can't see the Green River from here. It runs through the forest behind the monastery." As they made their way to the monastery, Turi looked back over his shoulder at the forest. He was glad to have left the trees. That part of his journey was over now. Brother Laurentus knocked at the gate of the monastery. The gatekeeper, a small man with a ruddy complexion, came to open up. He greeted them warmly and led them in through the gate and into a small cloistered courtyard. It was a very pleasant place, full of blossoming flowers, with a well at its center. "Your garden is looking fine, Brother Julius," said Brother Laurentus. "It's beautiful," said Turi with a contented sigh. The gatekeeper beamed at him. "This is Turi," said Brother Martin. "We met him along the way, and he's staying here tonight. The peace and quiet will do him some good. He was just attacked by robbers who took all of his belongings." "How awful!" exclaimed the gatekeeper. "Thank goodness he escaped in one piece, and your health is worth a great deal, my boy. Let it be a consolation to you." He looked Turi up and down and then said, "Do you travel from the east through the forest?" "Yes, brother," replied Turi. "I'm sure there are many young men who travel through the forest from the east," continued the gatekeeper, "but it could be. Yes, indeed it could." "What is it?" asked Turi, suddenly a little worried. "Someone came to the gate this morning," said the gatekeeper, "and asked me if I'd seen a young man around your age. He spoke in a very loud voice, and he said—" "Now, what was it again?" "What did he say?" asked Turi, "and what did he look like?" "It was a knight in gray. He had a squire with him, too. I was working in the garden when he knocked at the gate. I opened up, and there he stood. He asked me about a young man with blue-gray eyes, I believe. Yes, like yours." The gatekeeper shook his head. He was rather impatient, but I said to him, "Would you raise your visor, Sir Knight, and tell me who you are? I prefer to talk to a face, you see." And he did so. He lifted his visor, but he still didn't tell me his name. "What did he look like?" asked Turi. "He was a rather fierce-looking gentleman, very dark and bearded." And I said I hadn't seen a young man who looked like that. Well, I hadn't at that point. Then he rode away in a great hurry. I watched him go and saw him disappear into the forest. And I heard a horn. It was very loud and clear. Turi felt the color drain from his face. His enemy had been here, to this peaceful monastery. The three monks looked at him curiously. "Do you know this knight?" asked Brother Martin. "No," said Turi truthfully. "I don't know any of them. There are 4 knights, and there are 4 squires, and they are looking for me." "But why?" exclaimed the gatekeeper. "I don't know," said Turi. "Or rather, I think I do know, but I'm not allowed to say. If they find me, they'll kill me." It felt as though a dark shadow moved across the pleasant courtyard. Brother Martin laid his hand on Turi's shoulder. Turi looked at him and said, "I do not know these knights. I have done them no harm, but they are pursuing me and they wish me dead." "There's something mysterious about you," said the monk, "and I understand that there are things you are unwilling or unable to tell us. But you should know that you are safe in this monastery. No knight in gray will be able to harm you here." "A sanctuary," said Turi. "Exactly. This place is a sanctuary," replied Brother Martin. "My thanks for your trust in me," said Turi. "I am grateful to you for allowing me to stay here." "You may stay here for as long as you wish," said Brother Laurentus. "Just until tomorrow," said Turi. "Then I must move on." He sighed. The outside world seemed so hostile and full of dangers. "Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself," said Brother Martin. "First you must rest." "If that night returns, I shall say nothing," promised the gatekeeper. Imagine you being the very boy he was looking for. Oh, now I remember something else. He mentioned a ring. You don't have a ring, do you?" "Yes, I have a ring," said Turi, placing his hand on his chest. "Come," said Brother Martin. "Brother Julius, Would you show Turi his bed? Brother Laurentus and I must go to see the abbot. Follow me, said the gatekeeper to Turi. We'll be eating in half an hour, so you have arrived just at the right time. We shall see you later, said Brother Martin. He and Brother Laurentus left with a friendly nod. Turi followed the gatekeeper around the cloister and up a flight of stairs. They came to a long corridor with lots of doors. When they reached the very end of the corridor, the gatekeeper stopped and opened a door. You must sleep in this room, he told Turi, and then he left. Turi stepped through the door. He found himself in a small, whitewashed cell. It was furnished with a narrow bed and a small bench. A few rays of sun peeped through the high window. Turi sat down on the bed and looked up at the crucifix on the wall. Then there was a sound of hurried footsteps, and the gatekeeper returned, carrying a faded brown habit. Here, he said, you can wear this. It'll be better than your torn clothes. A little later, Turi, dressed in the habit, went for a walk in the garden. The gatekeeper proudly pointed out some of the more unusual flowers to him. Then he said he had something to do and left Turi on his own. Turi wandered around the deserted cloister. In one corner he saw an open door with another courtyard beyond. On the far side of that courtyard, a few steps led up to the church. Quietly, he entered the building. There were some monks kneeling at prayer and a candle burning on the altar. The evening light streamed in through the stained glass windows, bathing everything in a mysterious glow. Turi knelt and put his hands together. After a while, he stood up and returned to the first courtyard, where Brother Martin came towards him, followed by a tall, dark-haired monk. The monk introduced himself as Father Hieronymus, the abbot, and he welcomed Turi to the monastery. Then a bell rang, indicating that it was time for dinner. In the refectory, Turi sat at a long table between Brother Martin and the gatekeeper, and enjoyed a simple meal with them. After dinner, the abbot beckoned Turi to go with him, and he followed him to his cell. Brother Laurentus and Brother Martin have told me all about you, said the abbot, or at least everything that they know. They say you intend to remain as our guest until tomorrow, and then travel on to the Blue River. Yes, Father Hieronymus, said Turi. Will it be a dangerous journey for you? Asked the abbot. Yes, Father Hieronymus, replied Turi. Brother Martin told me there is much that is mysterious about you, said the abbot. You are very young to be undertaking a journey that is so fraught with peril. I'm 16, said Turi. The abbot smiled. Where are you from, he asked, and where are you going? I come from the city of Dagonet, replied Turi, and I am on my way to the source of the Blue River, to Minores, the hermit. Minores, the hermit? It's such a long time since I last saw him. Do give him my best wishes. And is your visit to him the reason for your journey? No, said Turi. I'm not actually allowed to tell anyone where I'm going. If your path is taking you to Minores, it is a good path, said the abbot, and your eyes and your voice tell me the same thing. I shall not inquire about your destination or your mission. I should only like to ask if there is any assistance I can offer. My thanks, Father Hieronymus, said Turi. Would you please tell no one that I have been here and that I am going to the Blue River? I promise, said the abbot. Then he frowned and said, half to himself, But you're going to need some protection. He fell silent for a moment and then said, You must keep the habit you are wearing. If you pull the hood up, it will offer some disguise. Thank you, Father Hieronymus, said Turi. And now you must sleep, said the abbot. May the peace of this place lend you new strength. Turi thanked him again and returned to his cell. He slept peacefully that night and had no dreams. The next morning, Turi said farewell to the monastery and to the monks, to Brother Laurentus, Martin, and Julius, the gatekeeper in particular. Then he knelt in front of the abbot and said, Father, please give me your blessing. The abbot laid his hand on Turi's head and blessed him. May God be with you, my son, he said, on your long and arduous journey. And that's the end of the chapter.